It is the Two Guys Garage Podcast. He's Kevin Bird, I'm Willie B, and this is gonna be loud. All right, so just to let you know, remember when you went into your local, department store? Right, remember the Kmart's and they would have radio section? You would go over to the radio section and you turn it all the way up, right? Or car toys or something like that. You go to the radio section, you turn it all the way up. Well, that's where we're at in SEMA. We're in the radio aisle, if you will. So you're gonna hear everything from mariachi music to polka music, which Kevin is really into. He may actually crack out a polka dance.
Barry Manilow guy.
But yeah, man, we're here because, we're dealing with audio today. We're talking to our friends from Stinger, and man, you wouldn't believe the dramatic changes in the world of audio.
Well, and what's, to add on top of that, man, these guys are all about the audio, all about the sound, but then you've got lighting.
Yeah.
Right? You got camera systems, right? And so now, how do you manage all
that
stuff?
Integration, right?
Yeah.
It's all that working as one, and you want it to be able to user-friendly, like type screen and work like the factory has these cool things. You get in and, you could select the camera, you select your computer dash to, break off sound here, there, wherever. But to be able to integrate that into older cars, or maybe you just didn't opt for that, well, now you can get all of that, right, aftermarket with what we're talking about today. And this amazing integration opportunity that's out there for everybody now. You don't have to buy a new car nowadays to have all this integration. It's there, it's available from Stinger.
Well, now you got a vehicle that's running on CAN, right? So there's a lot of communications and messaging, controlling different modules, controlling switches, you name it. So it gets very, very complicated.
Hold on, I got to dance.
And you need a company like Stinger that fully understands it. They're embedded in the OE, so they've got the largest CAN library probably that anybody has. So from vehicle to vehicle, they understand it from the inside out. So it's easy for them to step in, right, integrate it all together, and then add all this functionality that we want.
Hey, you know what? A lot of people, we need to probably back up, because a lot of people, when you say CAN library, everybody's like, what? Yeah, what is that?
Like soup can?
Yeah, I don't understand that. What are you talking about there? Maybe take it back a step and explain a little bit about that.
Well, it's a protocol of how the vehicle communicates within itself, right? So we know there's lots of different computers and modules everywhere for the doors and this and the lights, and all that has to come together. Yeah. And so it's not necessarily the old, you string a headlight switch directly to a relay to your headlight. It's more of a signal going to a brain somewhere, and that brain then sending another signal based on what it, understands it needs to do. And it's a computer kind of running everything with input signals and then outputs. And so
remember the first conversations you had in builds about your PCM or ECM, what or body control module, things like that. Well, nowadays it's everything's done by computers, right? There's no longer wires like he was saying. It's all by computer signal. It says, okay, do this or turn on or now do that. But that computer integration, right, for everything, for all the cameras, all the lights, all the bells and whistles, right, it has to have a way to talk to the car and get the demands of the person driving the car. Like, what's it instructed to do? How can you get all of these electronics to work in a way that's, the synergy between them is not something that you got to go plug in this piece or do this and have this, or then you can control your radio. No, it's all integrated, just like the touch screen from the factory. It's boop, 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 and you're done.
Yeah, if it sounds complicated, it's because it is.
Yeah.
Right? And so you need some pretty smart players out there to dissect it down and figure out how to piece it back together in a very simple, cohesive way that us dummies, right. know the screen, right? We've got the controls, the touch, that we can make everything happen.
There's the word I couldn't think about, that cohesion. And when you have all these modules, all these sensors, all these bells and whistles, in our case, lights and cameras, right, talking to one another, you got to find a way to get them to communicate. And our boys from Stinger, not only have they found a way for the OEs to do it, they found a way for everybody to do it. It's all right here from this little company who's doing really, really big things. So sit back and grab a pen or a pencil or something to take some notes, because what we're talking here is, it's what we've all been curious about, didn't know what maybe question to ask. or even didn't know what answer we were looking for, but they got them all. So get ready. We're gonna take a break, let the loud boys play. All right, we'll come back in just a second on the Two Guys Garage podcast and answer all those questions and probably provide you with a couple that you didn't even know to ask. All right, he's Kevin Bird and Willie B. We're back after the break. It is the Two Guys Garage podcast. He's Kevin Bird, I'm Willie B. And today we're talking some great friends from Stinger. Now, when you say Stinger, what do you think? Most people know them as audio company, right? Most people, I think, probably, Matt, you tell us, most people would probably go, I think, the audio company,
Yeah,
right?
most people think Stinger, they think of wiring or, amplifier accessories, things like that.
Yeah.
Which is part of your play.
It is, yeah,
right?
absolutely.
But you guys are much bigger than that. Much more complicated / simple.
For sure.
For us, anyways.
Yeah,
They take the complicated and make it simple.
Yeah,
right?
Stinger these days is one company that has a lot of smaller companies underneath it. So we have an audio company, we have a lighting company, we have an interfacing company, we have all of these different brands under the Stinger umbrella. So it's more than just Stinger.
Yeah, but you stitch it all together.
Absolutely.
And what we've been saying, integrate it into the vehicle. That's not a simple task.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about that integration. When you first started out seeing this as a problem, what was the first red flag? Or like, hey, I see a problem here, and here's how we can fix it. But what was the catalyst to start you down that road?
I think the first thing I ever saw was I used to work in a car audio shop as an installer.
Okay.
And the first time you got a vehicle in that didn't have a wire behind the radio that turned on with the key, there was no switched wire.
Explain that, because I don't think most people realize.
So generally speaking, in an older vehicle, you turned on the ignition switch and there was a wire behind the radio that now had power and told the radio to turn on. In the probably early 2000s, I'd say, there started to be a lot of GM vehicles. They were the first I could think of that didn't have that wire. There was now a computer control wire, a CAN bus wire, some sort of data wire.
Some language to say, hey, wake up.
Yep,
but
wake
not
up.
just
What is
juice.
that?
Exactly.
Not the pure juice.
Versus I need a 12-volt line, you'll wire the keys on. Where's that? Go into that. That used to be the way.
Yeah, and so things suddenly became much more complicated. And the solutions from when that problem first arose to now are so much better. For a moment there, the only solution was to take the original radio and hide it in the vehicle somewhere. So it literally lived behind a panel or inside the dash, and then you put a new one in the dash that you actually use. And obviously it's a little clumsy. We've come a long way since then.
Yeah, an extraordinarily long way.
Yeah.
So you see that as the first problem,
Yep.
right? Radio that doesn't have a wire.
Mm-hmm.
What was the means to start doing these interfaces?
Yeah,
and
what's
what was
2 and 3 flags that come up
Yeah,
that says,
sure.
all right, now we have a bigger problem on our hands.
I think steering wheel controls kind of got us there.
That's a good one.
So when you'd put an aftermarket radio in and you had the steering wheel controls still on the factory radio, now we need something in the middle to make those control the aftermarket radio. So that was
I didn't
kind of
even
one of
think
our
about
first
that.
claims to fame,
Because remember that there for a while, you'd accidentally hit your steering wheel, right? If you're a driver, how many times you're out there racing,
now?
right? And you're kicking your radio on it.
Yeah.
That really was a thing. And you're right. Once you replace that, the steering wheel controls wouldn't work.
Yep. They just go
Your
away.
Kenwood or your Alpine or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So you guys are making kind of I won't say a Band-Aid, but an interface,
Mhm.
right? To continue on the progress of stereos and modifications.
Absolutely.
What was it after the steering wheel?
We start to get into just the overall data of the car. Amplifiers started going digital. You couldn't just send an analog signal into them. You had to have a certain type of signal, whether it was most 50 or fiber or something, and you needed some type of translator in the middle.
And I imagine a lot of that was trial by error, right? Because when that first came out, right? How do we do this? Or we need to do that? Or I don't know, maybe this will work. Maybe if we did this and this and this, we can get those to talk. You're trying to figure that out as the technology hits you. But they were early to the game. I was like, hey, if all this is coming down the pipe, why don't we step back and look at how to create an interface that can work and bring all these to the same plate,
Yeah.
Which is kind of, I'm sure, how you guys started attacking it.
There's a lot of engineering that goes into what we do. These little magic black boxes that people take for granted. And hey, I buy this little module and suddenly my steering wheel controls work, right?
Yeah.
They don't realize that hundreds of hours of R&D and trial and error went into creating that product and making it work. One other thing I can think of that was a huge red flag in the audio side of things was one of our brands, Audio Control, has a product that solves a huge problem. So early 2000s, again, GM vehicles, they started to do this thing where as you turned up the volume on your car stereo, it actually turned down the bass. And they did it so that their factory speakers, which are generally cheap and inferior materials, won't blow, because they don't want to replace them under warranty. Now that's all good and fine, but as soon as you add an aftermarket amplifier, subwoofer, whatever, what you'll end up with is a system that has a ton of bass at low volume, but not any at high volume. Sounds goofy, right? So Audio Control figured out and came up with this technology called AccuBass. Basically what it does, the long and short of it, is it fills in that gap and it fixes the problem. And so now it sounds like you have a aftermarket Kenwood, Pioneer, Alpine, Sony, whatever in your dash, when in fact you still have your original GM radio and it works beautifully. And we've had that technology for quite a few years, but we were the first and still one of the only that figured it out.
It's wild because, you know, we were all back in the day installing stereos and stuff. I mean, it was pretty simple. Plug A into A and B into B. And,
pretty straightforward.
You know,
Yeah.
you know, and then crank it up and
it goes in there, right?
There's so many of these hidden things that you guys are kind of flushing out that most people aren't aware of. And it's weird that just the whole, let's say, protocol approach, whatever, from the OEs has evolved so much in probably different directions from one to another.
The early 2000s was just a weird time. Like, when you think about it, everybody was doing weird. You could actually roll up to a stoplight and ask somebody for mustard, and it was somewhat acceptable back in, 99, 2000. It was wild. But you fast forward, and you see all this technology in them. You can't buy a car nowadays without buying, a million computers. That's what's running everything nowadays. It's all computers. And when you see what these guys are able to do and take these interfaces and get you all that control and accessibility to the things that, we now just take for granted. Every one of us gets in a car and we expect a backup camera, right? You expect the headlights to turn when you turn the wheel, or the lights to light up the ground when you open the door. Like, we're so spoiled.
Well, we talked about the why, right? How do we kind of get along this path? So why don't we ground everybody on just maybe some of the basics of kind of your integrated system, like how simple, easy, and what it brings to the table?
Sure. If we take all of that data that we just talked about, and then we need a way to use it, a way to control it, a way to have something. So when we force all of that inside of our radio, now we can talk back and forth with the vehicle using a multifunction display.
So would you call it a smart radio?
It's a smart radio.
Absolutely.
Right, because the phone really kind of went from a phone to a computer phone, right? So it's doing so many different softwares and apps and whatever, right? Bluetooth.
It's silly we even call it a phone because nobody talks on it.
So I kind of see your system kind of like the smart radio, right?
It's kind of similar too, where years ago, again, the radio was the thing in the dash. That was everything. That was the CD player, the radio, that had the little amplifier in it that powered your speakers. But in the modern car, the thing you touch every day is not really a radio. It's just a remote control. It's a touchscreen remote control. The guts of it, so to speak, are definitely elsewhere in the vehicle. That's a big change from how it used to be, right? So making all of that still work and talk nice together is a pretty big deal.
Well, in a sense, though, you've got your screen and then the smarts all integrated into a package that you can take number of different vehicles, where they came with like a 8-inch screen or 10-inch screen, and typically yours are going to be, I would say oversized, but bigger, better, brighter, the whole thing. And so you kind of bring in one singular unit in a way and kind of replacing the screen that normally you'd have in your car today?
Yeah, more or less. I mean, we have a lot of cool replacement options now, especially for vehicles that came with very small infotainment screens. You bought yourself a Jeep and it only has that 4-inch display in the dash. Come on.
You're almost upset.
Yeah, I mean, who's getting, come on. So, we have great options for those now where you can have your choice. Do you want a 10-inch? Do you want a 12-inch? Which display do you like? And then, you pick your kit and we have everything to make it work. When I say make it work, I'm talking the plastics that make it integrate into the dash and look like factory, down to the harnessing and physical connectors, make it all play nice together, as well as all the interface modules like we've been talking about that keep the steering wheel controls working, keep the factory cameras working. When you put on your turn signal and it makes a chime somewhere, if you don't have the right stuff, those go away. You know, I mean, a lot of vehicles now too, you think about the screen in the dash, it's not just the radio, you're controlling some of the settings of the vehicle on that screen.
Yes.
If you got rid of that, again, all that goes away. We maintain all of that stuff.
Yeah, you guys are trying to add without losing.
Exactly. And that's something most customers, they're not willing to lose features. Why would you want to?
Just create a complete solution, right?
Yes.
Solutions solve problems and parts do not, right? So we want to take everything that you need to make it work and just make it that simple for the user to put it in, integrate it, and then enjoy it.
Yeah.
So we've got the bigger screen, right? We've got the radio functions. We've got the existing car functions. Maybe start talking about the layers of add-ons that now you can do with this additional
I don't even know how
function.
we went to the big screen. Remember you saw that initially? You saw a 10-inch screen. Everybody was like, what is that? Why do you need a computer monitor in your car? And next thing, well, if I don't have an 8 or 10-inch screen, well, 12-inch screen, then
now you're seeing them from A pillar to
Yes.
A pillar.
Yeah, 54-inch wide curved.
It's insane.
Yeah.
It's all
We got a 70-inch in my.
Yeah. I think it's funny too how marketing has changed with that too. If you think about it, like car commercials used to be horsepower, ABS brakes, blah, blah. Nowadays it's screen size, how many speakers, what infotainment options. Like that's their primary focus in a lot of that.
So
We've gotten away, like most people now don't probably know what size engine, how many cylinders, and all that stuff. It's more of,
I'd be willing
how
to bet
many
most
features
people
do
don't know,
I have,
like you
right?
said. Yeah.
How big's the screen?
Yeah, so with some of those extra features like you're asking about, it's one of the things that makes our systems a little bit different from some of the other aftermarket options is, we aren't just a Apple CarPlay and Android Auto screen that also plays the radio and this and that. We also have a lot
Which is great.
Which is great. Everybody wants that. That's like the bare minimums though, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, audio performance is a big part of it. We want to be able to add on amplifiers and better speakers and all that and tie them all into the system and have them work perfectly.
Well, you guys acquired a company, right? That's all about the generation of the sound, right?
Yep, absolutely. So that's Audio Control. That's that brand. And that's our speakers, amplifiers, subwoofers, etc. kind of product line and brand. And those Audio Control products tie directly into the Stinger infotainment units and solutions so that it all works beautifully together. And then along with that is, some of the other cool stuff we do as a company, like lighting, which you have a big hand in.
Yeah. So we have a new lighting line. It's launched here at SEMA. It's going to be, upgrade your factory, add off-road lighting to it or personalized by color lighting inside of the vehicle. So, and all that's controlled by that multifunction display, whether you're just turning it on or off, or you're changing the pattern of your interior lights or the color, to personalize the vehicle exactly like you want it.
And again, there's something that we kind of looked at and laughed at initially. Remember when you saw big trucks and underneath them were all lit up? You're like, what is that?
Right.
You don't need that. Now everybody wants lighting under the car when they open the door. They want their badge or their name or something cool. And these guys can give that to you, which is kind
my
of
wife
wild.
somehow found her favorite color in the Explorer. Like,
Right.
I don't know when I hit the button, it's the wrong color.
The blue,
and,
it's great.
Let me get that one color back.
It reminds me of like the neon of the Fast and the Furious days. That was kind of a joke and that fad passed. And then LED technology came along and it's like, whoa, hold on. We can do some cool stuff with this. And I think my favorite part of the lighting is, in the off-road world, there's a lot of that. Rock lights and whips on the back and all that stuff. It's all very cool. But if you've ever been in a modern Audi, BMW, Mercedes, they have that cool ambient lighting.
Yeah,
that's
so
like
cool.
tucked
Right
into the
behind
door
them,
panel.
behind the
we
panels.
offer that. And you can add that to any car. And if it's installed properly, it looks just like the OEM.
That's
and
so
just
cool.
like the OEM, you can control it from the screen. Change the colors, change the patterns, all that stuff. It's very slick.
Kind of the
That
dim
is
rate
cool.
and things
Absolutely.
like that.
Yeah, all of that.
Well, look, we're up against the wall, so we're going to take a break. But when we come back, the technology is coming at us. Every day there's something new. Nowadays, you're driving, if you're not necessarily looking at the road, you may get a vibration in your steering wheel, you may get a warning up here, you may get something that tells you, hey, pay attention to the road, or you can drive without your hands on it. How do you control that technology? How do you interface all this? More with our guys from Stinger and more answers coming up after the break. It's Two Guys Garage Podcast. Kevin Bird, Willie B. We'll talk to you in just a minute. It is the Two Guys Garage Podcast. He's Kevin Bird. I'm Willie B. We're at the Stinger booth in SEMA. And I got to tell you, man, we're getting a little bit of education here. Nowadays, the technology in cars it's kind of mind-blowing, to be honest, but it's really what separates all these cars at SEMA from cars that you're going to see at your local car show. Not a lot of cars at your local car show have the Well, the creature comforts we're talking about, the lighting, the cameras, everything you could do with cars nowadays, but Stinger makes that possible in any car out there. So that's something you're thinking, man, that sure would look cool in my 57 Chevy or my old K5 Blazer, which we've seen a lot of here at SEMA. Guess what? You can get all of that technology nowadays. And I'm curious because technology, as you guys know, it's constantly changing. More and more coming at us every day. Every time you get in a car, every time we fly in and do the show, we get a new rental car. And half the times in the rental cars, we're sitting there trying to figure out how to navigate stuff. How do I,
where's the damn button?
Where's a mirror to turn that different? Where's the this? And how do I do light? So all this technologies get thrown at us. So how do you guys keep up with it? And how do you guys know what's coming next so that you guys can stay on top of that? Because there's a lot coming at us every day.
Absolutely.
So we work with the OEMs, and then we also have our own.
Okay, hold on. They work with the OEMs. Nobody in aftermarket audio and lighting really has that bragging right. So he says they work with the OEMs. That you understand how huge that is. So already they're a step
inside
ahead.
Scoop.
Yeah.
So working with the OEMs and our own internal engineering. So we have some of the smartest engineers that all they live is CAN bus every single day. So
those are also people that give you suggestive serving sizes. Probably not the funnest people to hang out with.
True, very true, very true. But those guys get in there, they understand the communication, the language of the car, and then they live this audio life every single day, and they can translate that digital computer language right into the fun audio that we're talking about.
Well, we just started before the break kind of getting into some of the lighting, because you're a big rock crawler.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, so tell me how that sort of translates in your sort of perspective of lighting and what you do on your rigs and how you set them up, right? Because now you have a lot of different ways to run those lights, not just on and off.
As a guy that just went I just went on the adventure ride, a few other rigs had that, and I'm like, now I'm all jealous. It's like that thing. They had all this rock lighting, and you could see different, obstacles or angles or approach angles or underneath the rig. Or you could even work on the rig at night with the door open.
Well, check it out. So it's not just a matter of sticking them on and turning them off, or sticking them on and turning them on and off. Right? You can do a lot of kind of clever and neat stuff with them.
Yeah, like we want them there. We need them to work on our rigs and use our rigs. But what we want them to work autonomously as we're driving, right? So as I slow down to turn up the hill, I want the lights on that side of my car to kind of look up that hill so I can see where I'm going. If I,
But how does it do it?
So we're reading from the CAN bus. We're monitoring the steering angle. We're monitoring the speed
angle.
And when we see, we drop below 7 miles an hour in 4-wheel drive, and we have our steering wheel at 15 degrees of turn, let's go ahead and turn those lights on and look on there.
Automatically.
Yeah, man.
Automatic.
I know. So I have an old Cadillac, an STS. I just love, right? And one of the coolest features when I got it was when you turn the steering wheel, the lights turn.
Cornering.
I'm like, that is so cool. Imagine having that, I don't know, in your 83 CJ rock crawler, right? I would love to have that. So
tell me about
these guys make it available.
Right, you got your whole light array up there.
Yeah, so, those lights are great off-road, but they're on the vehicle all the time. So when we're on the road, we want to use those lights to signal, keep us safer, and let other people know what's going on with our vehicle. So if we're at a stoplight and we hit our turn signal, we want those lights to also flash with the turn signals to kind of add more awareness.
They're reading the turn signal, dude, on the stock, and then controlling the aftermarket lights up on the roof.
Yeah.
Yeah, and keep in mind, we're not always talking about like the actual projected light from a light bar. Sometimes we're talking about the little amber rings around the light. Because obviously, we don't want our light bar flashing with our turn signals. But, the little DRL lights up there, the little halo rings, like those flashing with the turn signals, draws a whole lot more attention than a puny little turn
that is
signal.
so trick. Even in muscle cars, you see that on occasion where they get the ring and the halo like to blink with it. And I'm like, how'd you do that? Now I know how.
Yeah. I think one of the coolest things I think with a lot of our lighting and off-road accessories and all that with the like Stinger radios, the infotainment solutions we're talking about, is we also have an accessory controller built in. So you have 4 outputs to control any accessory: a light bar, a winch, air suspension, a train horn, whatever, right? So no more are we drilling holes in our dash and putting a bunch of switches in, just doing it from the screen. What could be better than that, right? Like Now you have this, people have to stop thinking of the in-dash screen as a radio. It's your command center. It's it's your hub for the vehicle.
It's your Star Trek.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. And no longer is it a rear camera. Now, I mean, ours offer 4 camera inputs. So we can do turn signal cams and a rear cam and a front cam, whatever you want.
For a rock crawler, you can do an underbody.
We do an underbody
you know?
kit. We have a kit that is 4 cameras for underneath the rim.
See, I need that so bad.
Our catalog is thick and has a lot to offer.
Yes. We try to get away from that radio moniker, right?
Yes.
It's been around for so long. Now it's a multi-function display.
Yes.
So you're using it to control everything, your audio, your lighting, your personalization, your phone calls, everything.
So now I can just hear the light bulbs clicking on. You know, everybody that's listening or watching right now, because it's like, right, we're finally getting to where like this makes sense. Like this is something that, man, I want. You know, like.
Yeah, and what does this unit look like? It looks like a screen for us, but how big is it? How expensive is it? Give us some margins here to talk about, because you hear all this stuff and you're like, wow, I want some of that. So what are we looking at cost-wise? What are we looking at? How long does it take to do it? And how involved is this to get done?
We offered a couple of different ways. We have universal options, which would be the iX210 for the 10-inch version, or the iX212 for the 12-inch version. Cool thing on the 12-inch is it can be set horizontal or vertical. So let's say at a classic car, you're doing a custom console, a vertical screen looks really cool in there. Anyway, so those are the universals. If you're going to put those into an older vehicle, something like that, that's what you would use. If it's a more modern vehicle that we have full support for, say a Tacoma, Tundra, 4Runner, F-150, Silverado, the list goes on and on, right? We support Jeeps and Broncos and all these vehicles. Then we're going to have a full kit for it. And now that means you are getting the screen, the brackets, the plastics to make it work, the interface module, everything in one box, ready to go. Most of the time, depending on the vehicle, most of the time though, we offer a solution where you don't even have to crimp or solder anything. It's done for you. And you don't have to program anything. You're literally plugging it in, steering wheel controls work, the camera works. You don't have to go in, click buttons or flip switches, it just works. That's our biggest thing. So,
well, we've talked a lot about a lot of automotive applications, but we're sitting here right next to this Can-Am, or this Polaris, and you were talking about how like that came with no radio.
Correct.
And walk me through like that setup for the whole ATV, UTV, right?
Yeah,
kind of
so
market.
On the side-by-side, everything is built around performance, right? So you want to know how fast you're going, what's going on, but when you're doing that, you're driving that vehicle to its limit. You need to know what's going on inside of the vehicle. What's my rear diff temperature? What's going on with my, my transfer? What's going on with my lockers? What am I doing there? So we're reading all of that data from the car, redisplaying it on the multifunction display, and allowing the user to control it from the radio. So just giving much more information than we've ever done, whether it's lights or,
a
RGB,
lot more information
everything.
than what's available there from the factory, right?
Oh,
That information is not, that you can't get oil, temp, and diff, right? But
Yeah,
you guys
no.
can do that?
Yeah, so like that vehicle came with a small little 4-inch display that sits in front of the steering wheel that has your speedometer on it and a couple of little lights around the side. And now we've upgraded that to a big 10-inch waterproof screen that's glove touch. So even if you have your gloves on while you're driving off-road, you can still control the touch screen, which is a problem today.
Well, you mentioned something I think is pretty important for whether you're doing a Jeep, a Bronco, or a side-by-side is waterproof.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, both the 10 and the 12-inch are both waterproof. Now, to be clear, that's the display itself that's waterproof. The hideaway brain is not.
Right.
So you do have to be careful when installing it.
So don't submerge your vehicle.
Yeah, but no, they're not only waterproof, they're also covered in an anti-glare coating, anti-fingerprint coating, and they're what's called an optically bonded display. I won't get super nerdy on you, but what it really means is you can see it better in direct sunlight, even when it's off axis, because the screen is very rarely right in front of you. And it makes sure that no dust or moisture ever gets inside, because most screens have layers in them and there's air in between there, right? That's where you get glare. Sometimes you get a speck of dust or sand in there. With an optically bonded display, all those layers are sandwiched together with epoxy. And so there's no way to ever get moisture, dust, dirt, or something in there. And like I said, it makes a huge difference when you're in direct sunlight or off axis, that sort of thing.
Well, not only the functions that you just mentioned, that you can pipe from the vehicle into the screen.
Yeah.
Right on this rig over here, you've got cameras that you've added, you've got the lighting that you've added, and I thought what was pretty amazing, because you kind of touched on it, is it comes with all the harnesses to the right lengths and the right routings. So you're not sitting there trying to figure out, right, crimping and this and that.
How long do I need to cut this wire and all that? Yeah, it's all kind of done for you. Touching on the camera side of it, though, I think the coolest thing on that is that we were able to integrate, again, with reading CAN data and all that. When you turn the steering wheel to a certain angle, it'll show the correct camera for which way you're turning. On a side-by-side, that's pretty damn cool.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, this is all like NASA type stuff. It's things that you could dream of wanting, but have no idea of how to get it and how complicated.
That's crazy.
And
we
here
make
you
it
have
easy.
Essentially kind of plug and play.
Yeah, more or less. Yeah.
Plug and play, it's big. User experience is everything, right? If I pay $1,500, $2,000 for a piece of equipment and then it takes me 10, 12 hours to put it in and I'm super frustrated by the time it's done, it's not a great experience. Yeah. So we want the time they receive the box, as soon as they open it, that experience to be dialed from then until they push the button the first time to turn it on.
You say when they get your box, how difficult is it for the guy on the receiving end to put all this together?
I'll be honest, if you have a small set of tools and you're comfortable taking the dash panels off, everybody can do it. Some of our biggest customers are direct to consumer. So what we do is we create installation videos, great install manuals, and then we installers. You know, a lot of our people in our company are installers, technicians. They've done this before. So we've taken out all of the heartburn and the heartache of putting all that in and designed a product that is simply take the car apart, plug in our stuff, put it back together.
Dude, just think how baller you would feel, right? To order the kit and then just go, click, 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 install a couple screws in, and you're like, damn, I just created NASA type.
Show your wife or your friends, like, hey, look, I used to have this and now it's this. Yeah, it's
look how big it is.
Y'all ever seen a 12-inch screen or a $70 Charger?
Yeah,
I don't think so.
Yeah. But I mean, realistically, I think for most of the vehicles that we have full kits for, I would say, again, depending on your skill range, I mean, 2 or 3 hours on most vehicles would be pretty average.
Wow.
It could be done faster, it could take a little longer, but that'd be pretty average for most people. It's reasonable. It's a weekend afternoon, right? Like you could totally do it.
And plenty of tech support in case they run into problems,
killer
issues.
Yeah, so we have multiple tech support technicians inside of our building. We have them remote as well, and then we do it by chat, email, so we take care of you no matter how you want to talk to us.
Oh, that's awesome. And how do people talk to you? How do people find you? How do people keep up with what you guys are doing?
Yeah.
Oh, social media. Social media is big. Follow us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram. That's going to get you all the newest stuff that we got. And
what is it? Is it Stinger?
Stinger Drive.
StingerDrive.com.
StingerDrive.com.
They can get there, see all of our products, see all the solutions we got, and start interacting with our company to be able to find out what we have for you.
There you go. StingerDrive.com.
Yep.
That's where it is. That's where you find out social handles.
Yep.
Make sure you guys check that out there, and make sure you check out our show airing weekends on the Motor Trend Network. Check the local listings. Also available on Discovery Plus and Max. Thanks to our guest. He is Kevin Bird. I'm Willie B. This, my friends, is the Two Guys Garage podcast.
Yeah, we've got our website too at twoguysgarage.com and our social at Two Guys Garage. And I've got a very wobbly chair over here. This is Two Guys Garage podcast. It's copyright 2025, Written Productions Incorporated. All rights reserved.
There you guys go, man. Hope you picked up some tips. StingerDrive.com. I think we all need to visit that site for sure. Thanks for the time, guys.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Awesome.